So we are entering into a new year, 2019, and New Year's resolutions always involve catching up, whether that be with friends, with family, with their health. You're probably thinking of going to the gym right now. But for the most part, I think one thing that we are all trying to catch up with is media and content. Now, with the MCU in particular, they are having an increase in output of content every single year. They started with 1 movie a year, then 2 movies a year, and now we're at 3 movies a year. And in terms of the TV shows, the Netflix shows are kind of a dying breed right now, but generally we would get several shows a year. Not only is there so much MCU stuff, but we have so many movies, so many television shows, so many video games, so many podcasts, books, comics, etc., etc., etc. to get through. So as we're entering the new year, we have to ask ourselves, how much MCU is too much MCU? So I want to ask everyone here in the room, how do we personally digest content? This is episode 31 of AP Marvel, our first of 2019. I'm Chris Compendio, your usual host. I am joined by Anthony Paone.
Hey, yo.
Izzy Show is not with us today. She is in Jerusalem for vacation. So instead we have Erin Beasley, who is playing The Witcher 3 right now. Is that correct, Erin?
Yes, that's correct. Hello.
Yeah, how's, I forgot the character's name already.
Geralt?
Geralt.
He's doing great, yeah. I'm on the DLC right now, so I'm about to wrap up, I guess, Hearts of Stone, which I don't think I'll do during this podcast, because I don't want to, interrupt the story. I want to be able to hear all the lines, but it's something I'm doing.
Yeah. I'll just wait for the Henry Cavill Netflix adaptation. Yeah. Our guest today, we have Matt Storm, aka Stormageddon. What is up, Matt?
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a fan of the show, and we connected way back in
August, I think. Yeah.
August, yes,
yeah.
Right. FlameCon 2018 was over the summer last year, and we connected at my Doctor Who panel, and it was a pleasure to meet you. And you were like, "You've got to come on my podcast." I was like, "Sure, I have many podcasts. I am happy to talk on another one."
Yeah, and we greatly appreciate that. That was a fun panel where I raised my hand, and because it was the Doctor Who Queered, who I think was the name of the panel. And I was like, "Hey, what do you think of Ianto Jones dying?" And everyone in the room groaned.
Yeah, you got fun. A pretty wide room tone reaction from that. It's pretty funny.
Oh, man. But yeah, anyway, don't bury your gaze. Anywho, it's 2019. I am overwhelmed with so many things that I have, not only that I want to get to, but things that friends and family tell me to get through. So let's kind of go one by one. Anthony, would you say you have a massive backlog of content, and how would you say you get through it?
I have a massive backlog of video game content, and I do not know how to fucking deal with it.
Relatable.
I literally just got Red Dead 2.
Mm-hmm.
I want to at some point play Assassin's Creed Odyssey, but I'll probably never play that ever in my life. I have Grist that I have on my Switch that I'll never be able to finish. I have to beat this season of Fortnite. I also have to
You don't have to, Tony.
These are have-tos.
Okay. Right.
And then I have to get all the characters in Smash that is necessary, and then I need to do Let's Go Eevee because I was playing that for 5 seconds before Smash came out. And then what else? Oh, I have to do all the DLC for Spider-Man the game because that's also important and may involve the podcast at some point. So I need to finish that. What else? Oh, I need to play Black Ops, the game because I have it. I bought it. I should play it. Yeah, everything sucks.
I like how your answer to "do you have a backlog" is reciting your entire backlog.
Yes, well, I have more than just that. I have books that are stacked up in my room that I need to read, and I don't know what to do first: play the game or read. And both are equally beneficial to my well-being. So
okay, so we can work with this. So I guess my next 2 questions are: how do you keep track of that, and then how do you prioritize things, if at all?
I stare at it every day. I wake up and I say, "Oh."
So you don't have a written list. You just have physical piles.
I have a pile of okay, once I finish this book, then I go to the next one in the pile, and then I go through that, and then that's the same thing I have with my games.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention you have a real life job that you have to get through. So
yes,
how do you
also work 7.5 hours every single day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have to wake up at 6 a.m. every single day. Life is agony.
Life is a big part of your backlog.
Your
life.
Yeah.
Aaron, please tell me you are more organized than Anthony.
Oh yeah, I'm doing great. I don't have a backlog in anything. In fact, I'm ahead. I'm
Lucky.
6
Wow.
chapters in to a textbook I have for a class I have next semester.
Wow, what
15
a
to
nerd.
10, yeah. And then I'm
What a
playing a video
nerd.
game, which, I don't feel any obligation, to, like, finish these DLC things I'm playing. Like, I enjoyed them, but I don't need to do it. And then, let's see, what else? I mean, I don't work. I'm a college student, which counts enough for me, so...
Sure.
That's work.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that still counts as work. So Anthony's use of the terms wants to and need to is interesting. So Aaron, do you feel like you're not obligated to actually get through any of this stuff? You're just kind of casually going
Yeah,
through
I'm
these?
just, it's winter break. I don't need to do any of this.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for fun. To a
When I
certain
was a
extent.
child,
Ooh.
I thought that winter break was like 4 weeks long, and I thought that the gap between Christmas and New Year's felt like an eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I graduated, and I learned it's only a week,
Yeah.
and it sucks because all the joy is gone.
Yeah, I'm
And I woke up at 4 a.m. today, and I hopped on a plane at 7 o'clock. I landed in Pittsburgh at 8:30, and I went to work at 9. And I got out of work at 3. That is my life. We're filming this the day after Christmas. And I also my backlog list didn't even include Daredevil season 3, Iron Fist season 2, Luke Cage season 2, Jessica Jones season 2, Runaways, Cloak and Dagger, all the shows that I basically haven't watched. I also have to watch the last two seasons.
Have to.
I have to.
Have to.
Well, I actually have to watch the last 2 seasons of Shield because I feel like Shield's more important.
Oh, I
than
love
Netflix
Shield.
shows.
Great
Yeah.
show.
I will agree. Shield is pretty
Yeah.
spectacular.
Yeah. So
I watched this
Yay
for
me.
fun in between my.
Yeah.
But, wait, I wanted to say
yeah.
I have a new book backlog. I'm halfway through a book I got on Christmas. It's called Bad Blood. It's about Theranos, the like Silicon Valley startup that turned out to be like a total fraud. It's really interesting. Would recommend.
Damn. That sounds pretty interesting. But would you say you have a written list, or is that just kind of?
Oh no, I just sort of do everything, as I think of it. I guess I've always done things like that. If I forget homework, like I feel like bad, but so far I've had really good luck. When I was in high school, I never got called out on it, and then now that I'm in college, if I fuck up and forget something, that's the
Sure.
end. But
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet, so.
Well, just you wait. Matt, as someone who has 4 podcasts, how are you doing with your media consumption? Paint us a picture.
That's a great question. So actually, it's funny. One of my podcasts called Fun and Games is a general gaming podcast. Me and my co-host take on gaming as art, and so I had an idea at the beginning of this year to actually track all the games I start, play, and possibly complete within a year's time. So it's old games, new games. It's whatever I've played that year, and my list is currently at 31 games. I've played all of the ones that are on the list. I've beaten maybe, which means just finishing the main story, maybe half of them, and I've completed 1. So, and by completed
That's awesome.
I mean unlock all the things, play every branching story path, blah blah blah.
100%.
And so that said, though, having done that, I still have, as I said, I only have completed half of them. So I have a half of the games. I'd say maybe a third of that other half are ongoing games. So your Overwatch, your Heroes of the Storm, games that I can't really beat. The rest are games that I've started and either abandoned because something else came out, or I abandoned because I wasn't enjoying it. And my games are a mix of Switch, Steam, and PS4. The majority are Switch and the PC because I just play on those more. But I still, like any other Steam user, have an insane gaming library thanks to the sales and juicy games I can get at a cheap price that I still haven't touched. So my gaming backlog is still pretty huge. And I try and stay on top of it for the gaming podcasts that I do, but I also have a gaming podcast called Reignite. I promise I'm not going to do all my plugs now.
That's fine. This is important context.
Which is focused on Mass Effect, the Mass Effect series. And me and my co-host are playing through the series and discussing our choices and so on and so forth. And with that, like, I've played all of the Mass Effect games so many times, but now I'm playing them again because I have to get through X amount of content before each episode so we can discuss that section of the game. So that kind of pushes the rest of my backlog back because I have to devote at least 2 or 3 hours to that stuff. And so on top of that, then I do my own interview podcast and I do a movie podcast. For the movie podcast, though, it's fairly casual. So, like, we don't have, like, this project of we have to watch X amount of movies. We just talk about the most recent movie we've seen. So I don't feel a lot of pressure to see every movie that's in the theaters. But because of all of these different things that I work on, like Anthony was listing, all of those seasons he mentioned of the Marvel TV shows on Netflix, I haven't watched any of those as well. And mind you, I loved season 1 of Luke Cage. I loved season 1 of Jessica Jones. I loved the first 2 seasons of Daredevil. And I still haven't watched any of those shows. I haven't watched the first season of Punisher. I've watched maybe half of the
I forgot about Punisher. I haven't even watched that either.
I've watched about half of the first season of Runaways with my spouse.
Same, actually.
Then I got bored, and so she has continued to watch it, but I haven't. I haven't touched Cloak and Dagger. And then there's just other shows on Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime that I want to watch that aren't superhero related that I haven't gotten to. And then I'm also I watch YouTube like it's any other streaming service. So, like, I have content creators that I check in with regularly that put out content every week, some twice or 3 times a week, and so staying on top of that has even been a challenge. Thankfully, I don't read a lot of books, which probably sounds very dumb, but it's mostly that I prefer audio, so I listen to a lot of books more than I read them, just because I'm an auditory person.
Same.
Duh, for podcasts. So, like, a lot of the books that I consumed this year actually have been listened to, and I prefer autobiographical stuff, usually read by the author. So I don't really have a feeling of a backlog there because, like Aaron, I don't feel a pressure to consume X amount of books, but I definitely do feel it with gaming and movies and TV. But talking about how we deal with it, I feel like creating the gamer log that I did for my gaming podcast has allowed me to get a better idea of how much I'm playing versus how much I'm buying, and I'm still ahead of the game. If I said I played 32 games this year, I think I've bought 40 or 45 games. So that's
a good ratio.
That's not a bad ratio. Now, that said, that's over years. So there were 10 games this year that I bought that I didn't play, and 10 games last year so like that piles up. But that said, I feel like I'm not overwhelmed by gaming as much because those games that I buy, I get them as a deal, and I know someday I'll have nothing to do or I'll be bored with all the games I have, and I'll go back and play those games. So, like, I just don't feel like I don't feel overburdened by my gaming backlog, but definitely the TV, movies, and streaming service stuff, I do feel pressure because everyone's talking about it. Oh my God, have you seen the new Sabrina series? Oh my God, have you seen the new Daredevil? Oh my God, have you seen this, that, or the other thing? The new season of Steven Universe. Like, so, and those are all things that are spoiler-filled discussions that I feel the pressure to try and catch up on, and I'm just drowning in. I cannot get through all that content.
That's a great point. Yeah, I always, to a certain extent, I feel pressure to watch popular media just so I don't get spoiled in it before I get the chance to experience it.
Yeah. So, like, that actually is a good segue to what I was gonna ask or bring up because a lot of the big games that I ended up getting came out in September, October, and November, but all of this summer I was playing Undertale and Night in the Woods. Like, those are my 2 games that I focused on because I got Night in the Woods on the PC when it came out last year, but I got a shit PC and I wasn't able to run it, so I kind of just, like, bought it on Steam and it just sat there. And then, same thing with Undertale. I bought it when it came out because I knew that everyone was talking about it. Fortunately, it was never spoiled for me what happens in that game. So they just said that it was good and, like, very interesting. So I just kept it in my PC. And then when it came out for the Switch, I got both of them and then I beat both of them.
Listen,
So, yeah.
buying things at a Steam summer sale and never playing them is like an annual tradition. So
It's very similar to going to a bookstore and buying a shit ton of books and then never playing those books. I feel like that's the more modern version of it, with like us. Where we'll just buy like, oh, this game's for sale, this game's for sale, this game's for sale, yeah, and all
you
that
gotta
stuff.
have
Like,
it. Gotta have it.
Yeah, yeah. I have like so many on there that like I think the games that I play through the most are actually just like old games that I played when I was a kid, like the Pajama Sam games, the Putt Putt games, and the Spy Fox games.
That's what you mean.
Because I really wanted to play those in the moment, and they were really quick and easy, and I remember when I played them, I beat them, and that was it. But like the one game I really want to get for Steam is Return of the Obra Dinn, because it is such a very like it's a very spoilery game, and I don't want to like explore the internet and just happen across a spoiler of it.
So as someone who is a content creator and also wants to digest content, I kind of feel for you, Matt, because not only do I have this podcast, so I kind of have a pressure to catch up with MCU stuff, but I write for DualShockers. I have to play video games. I write for Flixus, so I have to watch movies. So since you mentioned the Obra Dinn, Tony, I've had a review code of Return of the Obra Dinn for like weeks, and I've just been sitting on it. And that's a thing I have to get to because I have to write a review for that. And it's trying to balance that all is just like maddening for me. So I tried to make a list specifically I have a separate movie, TV, and game lists, all three of them separately. I'm staring at my game list right now. It is on a Apple Notes checklist. And I have not updated this since July 19th, 2018. And I have divided everything by category, by platform. So I have PS4, PS3, Switch, Wii U, so-and-so.
PS3 on there?
Yeah, I have Resistance 3, Eco Plus Shadow of the Colossus, and Dead Space 2 because my friend sold his PS3 and gave me both of those games. So I'm like, oh man, since you gave them to me for free, I should probably actually play them.
Yep.
And what I tried to do over the summer, and obviously failed to do because I have not touched this list, obviously, is I found some sort of random number generator thing on a browser, and I copied and pasted my whole list. I hit a button, and then it gave me a random game, and then I'll be like, okay, that's the game I try to finish. The first one that I did and completed was Telltale's Game of Thrones. Rest in peace. And I have not touched this list since, to be honest.
But like very serious rip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tried to play Telltale's Game of Thrones, and I didn't. I guess I got like 3 minutes into the first part of it, and I was like, nah, never mind. But I did read.
It's not one of their best.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, though, because I feel like I have more scrutiny for games and media now than I did before because my time is precious. And God forbid a game or a movie or TV show wastes my time. Like, it's why I'm probably harsher on season 1 of Iron Fist, even though it is pretty bad, than most people, because I got a half hour through it. I could barely watch the first episode.
It's bad.
And then I was so angry that it wasted a half hour of my time that I could have been consuming anything else that was probably better.
Yep.
And I find that with video games too. Like, I'm a big JRPG guy. I've been playing them since I was a kid. For those not in the know, Japanese RPGs tend to be longer and more story driven and have turn-based battles and like a slower pace. And like, there are some that I'll pick up and play, and like after a half hour I'll go on board and put it down. And then there are others that I have been way more into, like Octopath Traveler, which came out this year for the Switch.
I've been dying to play that game, but I know that if I play that game, I can't play other games because I will be battling fucking boars in the middle of the woods. But it's like, I'll kill one boar in 5 seconds, go through the loading screen, all my characters will get their XP, and then I back out, walk 5 feet, face another boar, and then do the same process 30 times. And I don't want to fucking do that when I could be, killing, bandits in Red Dead Redemption. It's like, I don't want that.
So yeah, what I will say about Octopath Traveler compared to other JRPGs is that it doesn't feel like your time is being wasted, but I totally get that. Like, I picked up Persona 5 recently. A friend of mine sent it to me as a present, and I played it for 2 or 3 hours, and I really liked it. but then I got Okami HD on sale on the Switch, and that's all I've been playing because I feel like I'm accomplishing something every time I turn on the game. Whereas with Persona, it dragged, and I didn't feel like I was doing anything. And I think at the end of the day, playing games, watching movies, and watching TV shows, I have to feel like I'm getting something out of it in short amounts of time. So if I don't have the ton of time to dedicate it, it gives me a reason to go back. I think what got me through also a lot of the Netflix shows is I was watching them with my partner. And when we're watching stuff together, we tend to sit and watch more stuff, especially since she really likes to binge watch stuff. And so, like, once we realized we had to divide and conquer because we couldn't really sit and watch everything together, I started to fall behind on everything while she has watched a lot of it.
I think that's kind of the weird thing with the Netflix model when they release everything at once. So there's this pressure to binge it as fast as possible because you want to be in that conversation. So it's not like Game of Thrones where it releases weekly and everyone's able to talk about last night's episode at the quote-unquote water cooler, as we call it. But, and it's an interesting thing because Runaway Season 1 was weekly. So anyone who has been listening to me for years, I did a little podcast with Raquel Katicha. We did the Runaways recap, where every week we did like a recap of what happened in the latest Runaways. We can't really do that with Season 2 because they released all of it at once in the Netflix model. So I think... there are pros and cons of that whole binge model, but I gravitate more towards the weekly just to first of all, binging is like not a healthy habit.
No.
And it's especially when we're talking about the Netflix stuff. So it's interesting you mentioned Iron Fist Season 1 because there is this pressure to watch all of the Netflix MCU shows because you want to know what's happening in the Defenders. And when you look at because, Netflix doesn't release their viewing numbers, but reportedly, The Defenders was the least watched show. And I would have to guess it's because no one put in the time to watch 5 seasons of television to watch 8 episodes of The Defenders.
Right. And I think also eventually those shows were going to take a dive anyway because you can't put out perfect content forever. I mean, there have been bad MCU movies. Most of the bad ones are still watchable. Like, they're not awful. But, like, I thought Thor 2 was okay, but it's clearly not as good as so many other of the MCU movies, even Thor 1. But I think also a big part of it, too, with the MCU specifically is I'm even starting to get overwhelmed with just the movie universe. I mean, if you had told me when Iron Man came out that I was going to get 3 Marvel movies a year, I would have been so excited to get to see 3 new Marvel movies every year. Meanwhile, I am starting to even fall behind. Like, I still haven't seen Ant-Man and the Wasp. Not because I didn't want to, not because I wasn't interested, but because I literally just didn't have the time between whatever else I was working on, whatever other movies were coming out at the time. I just couldn't make it work, and I still haven't seen it. I'll probably just buy it straight out on Blu-ray because I'm sure I'll enjoy it. But I'm starting to feel it even with stuff that's spaced out over months and months that I can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
And imagine imagine
Aaron,
if you were just starting in the MCU now, like you
God,
turned
yeah.
13 and you weren't even born when the MCU started, and then you have to catch up with 20 movies or something in order to be up to date.
I feel like that's like with people who are really into Star Trek. Like,
oh my God.
Like, I know a lot of people who are super into Star Trek, but they watched all of it because they're all our age and they weren't around during Next Generation and the original series, so they had to watch all of that, and that is like I don't know how many. I forget, like 6 or 7 seasons for the first one, and then 8 or 10 for the second, and it's like hundreds and hundreds of episodes. How can you watch all that?
Let me tell you about Doctor Who, Anthony.
Well, and then there's also Doctor Who. That's one of the also reasons why I stopped watching that, is because I knew it was going to get bad, and I didn't want to keep watching it. And
to be fair, I'm current with Doctor Who. The new Doctor is fantastic.
Me as well.
Season's really great.
I hear she's amazing.
But also, the brilliant thing about this new season is all you need to know is the basic concept of Doctor Who. If you do, you could watch the current season without knowing anything.
Yep, absolutely.
They've designed it in a way that you don't need that.
It's also shorter.
Right. And that's what's really great is talking about Star Trek, I haven't seen Star Trek Discovery, but from what I've heard, if you have a basic working knowledge of Star Trek but not have seen everything, you can still really enjoy Star Trek, the new one, Discovery. And I think that's where the MCU is going to start to have some issues with Infinity War and now Endgame coming this year. If they don't wrap up Endgame with a neat little bow so they can kind of start from the beginning again, people are going to lose it because you need another starting point somewhere. Otherwise, people are going to riot because no one has the time to consume all that content.
It's like when I have a kid, am I going to just be like, all right, kid, here are 30 movies. I'm going to make sure that we watch all of them.
Yeah, my parents sat me down when I was a kid, and they gave me the original Star Wars trilogy on VHS. Yep. Am I going to have to give my hypothetical children a giant box set? Okay,
a giant suitcase full of DVDs.
It's interesting. So my sister is a big MCU fan, my little sister, and she has a high school friend who has never seen a single Marvel movie. So what my sister did, I think, literally 2 nights ago, was that she made a Google document of, okay, like, this is a sentence for each movie of, like, what is important about these movies. These are the movies I recommend you skip. So it's like, here, watch Iron Man 1, skip The Incredible Hulk, watch Iron Man 2, so and so and so. And then, skip The Dark World. Here's the important things that happen in The Dark World. And she basically gave her friend, like, a prescription for the MCU. Like, these are the specific things you have to watch. And I actually did the same thing with Anthony. I did it with Morgan because Morgan did not like the Stephen Moffat era of Doctor Who. And so they just avoided the Capaldi era, and I really liked that era, so I made them a list of, like, hey, these are the Capaldi episodes you should watch before you get to Jodie Whittaker. So it's the fact that it's had to come down to that. I think is a little. It's kind of funny, but it's like, oh man, that's like a lot of work just to like.
And it
watch
baffles me because I have all these movies, I have all these TV shows, I have all these games that I have discussed already for the past 30 minutes, and I will see a tweet from Chris that will say Fast 5 is the best Fast and the Furious movie, and I already watched all the Fast and the Furious movies, but I will go onto Amazon, I will download that movie, and I will 6.
Oh yeah, 6 is the best one.
So I will watch that movie again. I will.
But you don't have to, Anthony.
But I don't have to. But I want to, and I will watch Infinity War for the 3rd time or the 4th time, and I will go and I watch Cloud Atlas for the 15th time, and I've watched these things already. But for some reason, I'm not optimizing my time, but I'm watching stuff I've already seen because I know what the result is going to be. I know how I'm going to react, and I know what the film and the content is going to give me.
It's comfort food.
Yeah.
With a lot of other content, you're kind of given an unknown. With heavily criticized content, you're kind of given a, like, oh, this is you'll get a lot of, like, if it's a good movie, you'll get a lot of good, and then you'll hear like the 1 or 2 bad things, but sometimes I'll harp on the bad things, and that will be a reason for me to hold that movie off. Like, it's one of the reasons why I haven't seen Vice yet. Like, some people are saying it's good, and other people are saying it's like eh. And then with like certain things like Undertale and Night in the Woods and Obra Dinn, there's a level of mystery to it, and I love that mystery because people are saying it is good, but that's all they're saying. And I want to know more, and I want to see that. I want to figure out what scratched their itch, and I want to have that.
A year ago, my uncle handed me a USB flash drive, and he really wanted me to watch this one movie that was on it. It was, what was it? Jesus Christ. Glengarry Ross or something like that. Glenn Ross. And he gave it to me, and it was like, hey, I want you to watch this movie, and I want you to tell me what your thoughts on it. I gave that flash drive back to him yesterday in Christmas. It took me an entire year to watch that movie, whereas like I watched The Winter Soldier, I think, like 5 times in 2018. So I get what you mean, Anthony. It's like it's comforting. It's it's like kind of a nice, almost like a baseline, I guess you can call it. Like it kind of grounds you in a way. But at the same time, like you're totally right. The concept of optimizing your time is, I feel like that's just not really existent for us because we just kind of do things on the fly, you know? It's not like we schedule time, especially with our real jobs and whatnot and schoolwork and whatever that might be, you're not going to put in your schedule, watch this new movie. At least I don't think you would.
I put in the time for myself too. So it's like that, because I know how important that is for me, and I know how important that is for a lot of us in our age range where we need to have time for ourselves. So it's like, oh, you guys are just saturating yourselves and you're going to go out and like be all stressed and stuff. It's like, no, we put the time to ourselves, but we also are worried that we need to get to this other stuff that we know is important to us.
Well, I think a big part of that, I think there's a big part to do with accessibility also. Think about when we were all kids. It's like we had, like, I don't know about you, but maybe for me at least, I had a Nintendo and a Super Nintendo, and I had maybe 5 games for each. And like I had one game for a whole year some years, depending on what my parents could afford to get me. And so like we had to sit and replay stuff because we didn't have a choice. Mm-hmm. And it built in this quality of re-enjoying things that we've liked from our past. But I feel like we're at a point now where you have access to so much content at once that you cannot rewatch anything anymore. Mm-hmm. And when you do, it's at a detriment. Like one of my favorite games of all time is a game called Chrono Trigger. It's a Square Enix, mm-hmm. although at the time they were Squaresoft RPG. It's in the vein of Final Fantasy. It's got multiple endings. It's one of my favorite games of all time. I used to play it at least once a year. I've gotten so oversaturated with all of the other media that I'm trying to consume either for the things I'm working on or just for leisure that I haven't replayed it in years because I just don't have the time because I want to play all this other stuff. And I think part of it is probably from us being adults and now having jobs and having other responsibilities other than homework and playing video games. But like, I definitely get the sense of, as an adult in this era, there's just so much access to so much stuff that it's so easzy to get overwhelmed because mm-hmm. you feel like you have to take in the new stuff over the old stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's interesting because, like, the other day, over the summer, I was getting really into Paper Mario for the N64 because I never played it. And I was like, oh, I know that this is a game that I should play. So I've been trying to beat that, and I haven't finished that yet. I want to play Mother or Earthbound. Because I haven't played those yet. I want to watch a couple of other movies from the 90s and 80s that I haven't watched yet. Half of my books in that book pile that I have are books that existed 80 years before I was born. And I just need to read those for the sake of understanding philosophy and my ideological standing in the world. So, like, it's hard when there's stuff that has existed way before you and you haven't even realized it up until you're in your 20s. So you feel like you've wasted so much extra time that you could have 5 or 10 years ago. But you can't read like a book. You can't read The Stranger when you're 12. So it's like, what? Just so much stuff, and my brain just is frying thinking about all the stuff that I need to consume.
Well, let's try to calm ourselves down by going back in time. So, Aaron, you there? You still playing Witcher 3?
Yes, I am. I was gonna, on the discussion a while back, I was gonna comment, it's like, sort of fitting to the season, watching the same Christmas movie every Christmas. Like,
yeah,
my family, we always watch Elf, and I've seen Elf like 20 times, but I still watch Elf, during Christmas. It's like, I could hypothetically go find a new Christmas movie. Like, I could watch
It's a Wonderful Life is my favorite Christmas movie. I watch it every year.
I could watch Die Hard, which is
me hate watching Love Actually is my tradition. Because I hate that movie, but it always plays on cable. I was going to ask you, Aaron, because you mentioned it in the pre-show. You were talking about how this kind of happened with a specific genre, and was it the 1930s where the Westerns kind of went this way?
Yeah, exactly. What happened was, like, so many Westerns were created. Like, now, there's a bit of a market for Westerns, but they aren't widely made anymore, and part of that is due, I guess, I want to say actually the 1920s. It might have been earlier than the 1930s. Let me look it up. Mm-hmm. Saturation.
We did a lot of research for this episode, as you can tell.
Yeah. It was the point I just brought up, like, when we were talking before the podcast. So,
yeah, it's like movie musicals too. So you had like Hello Dolly was like one of the last few ones where like you had Singing in the Rain earlier on, and anything with Gene Kelly, stuff like that was like a big thing, and then it just kind of disappeared.
I mean, Hollywood's not a stranger to overproducing something and making too much of a thing until people are burned out on it.
Which is really weird because back then you had multiple Hollywood companies all kind of making different things, where now you have like 3 or 4. Where back then you probably had like 10 making all the same shit. Now you have 4 making all the same shit, or to an extent. And it's, I don't know, I feel like, what the fuck?
Yeah. All right. I found a quote. According to the Hollywood Reporter and the documentarian David Gregory, it has been estimated that up to 40% of all films made before 1960 were westerns. So
what the fuck?
What happened was there were so many westerns up until 1960 that like the entire industry got tired of them.
Jesus. I wonder if people did like a statistic of like 1990 until now, how many superhero movies have been made, and what's the percentage on that?
It's probably not that ratio, if I had to guess, but
it's definitely not 40%.
I think honestly, we should also know about like today's era versus the 1960s. Say is there's so many more places you can get content as well. Like you don't have to watch the movies. You could watch YouTube videos, or you could watch Netflix or something. I mean,
you can just watch those same vines over and over again.
I'm watching YouTube videos for some of my favorite content creators from like 2 years ago, because it has the same, like, they still talk about the same concepts, but like just different specific things that they can't talk about now because they already covered it. So yeah, there's like a bunch of people that I've been watching, and sometimes I'll even go back to like old H Bomber Guy videos because I just want to watch why Fallout 3 sucks again. So stuff like that. Just like, why?
I think, well, specifically with the MCU, what's really interesting versus, specific genres like movie musicals and cowboy movies is like the MCU, at least now in this phase, has branched out into different genres from sci-fi to espionage to straight up comedies. And that's given some variety. But I think there's something about it still being connected universe and everyone in the public eye knowing that lumps it together, even though the genres are different, because there's still this connective tissue between the movies that has an insistence on needing to have seen all of them. It's this idea of like, we got so little Star Wars back in the day, and then some more in the 90s, and then some more animated stuff after that. But we never felt like there was an overabundance of Star Wars stuff. Whereas now, since the new trilogy has started, there were going to be 2 movies a year. Now it looks like there's only a movie a year, but there's new TV series and new comics and new games. And like, I don't know that I wanted Star Wars to become a cinematic universe like Marvel did. It is, but I don't know that I wanted it to, because I was happy with what little bits I got because it made it more precious. The more you churn out of this stuff, I think the less value there is in it.
And I think the thing that people have been kind of missing is Star Wars as an event. So back in the day, it would be one movie every 3 years. And now Solo came out. And honestly, who's still talking about Solo? I mean, did everyone like gather into the theaters to watch Solo?
That was
especially
a bad
the same
movie.
month as Infinity War. But
that was a really bad movie. Oh my god.
Yeah, I think we're at a point now where you're right. The movies aren't the same events that they used to be. Like Infinity War was, because everything that we had seen since Iron Man was leading to
everyone
that.
is
But
here.
like think about Disney movies. Like Disney movies used to be an event, and they still sort of are, especially for kids. But like for me as an adult, they were an event also. And now even still, I feel like there's just so many of them. Like I loved the first Wreck-It Ralph, so I was excited to see the new one this year. And it was such a disappointment compared to the first one. And then, I didn't see Beauty and the Beast, the live action one, when it first came out in theaters, because I just didn't have the time. And like now they're doing a live action Dumbo and a live action Lion King and a live action Aladdin, and like retreading what they've done before, along with still consistently releasing new animated features. And some of them are still really good. Like I loved Moana. I thought Frozen was pretty
Still
good.
haven't seen Moana, and I need to see that. I still haven't seen Coco. I need to see that.
Oh,
I haven't
Coco's
seen
amazing.
Coco yet.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
People keep telling me this.
I've
and
seen Coco like 3 times. It is.
But you know what? Do you know what I want to do? I want to watch Fast and the Furious 6 because I won't cry in Fast and the Furious 6.
But see, this is the point, that they're like movies that a decade ago would have been events that everyone would have seen. Like I don't know anyone who didn't see Phantom Menace the year it came out. Star Wars fan, not Star Wars fan, like everyone saw that movie, for better or worse. Everyone saw it, and I just don't feel like that's the case anymore. Like especially with nerd properties that are the closest to my heart. Not everybody sees everything anymore. Like even my spouse won't come to every Marvel movie. She comes to most of them with me, but like she skipped Spider-Man Homecoming, which truthfully you don't have to have seen to understand his role in Infinity War if you have a basic working knowledge of who Spider-Man is. Like it's just we're at a point where sometimes you've got to tap out on some of this media because there's so much of it.
And also the big problem is that there are too many platforms to watch these now. So
Yeah.
in addition to all those live-action Disney movies, none of which I've seen, not because I didn't want to, but because I just didn't feel a need to, but
Right.
there is a Lady and the Tramp live-action movie that is coming out. However, it is not going to be in theaters. It's going to be on Disney's streaming service, Disney+.
Of course.
Tessa Thompson is Lady and Justin Theroux is the Tramp.
Jesus Christ, okay.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
weird, isn't
also,
it?
for the viewers out there, I just want to make this, listeners out there, I
Yes.
just want to make this very clear.
see.
The reason why Disney is doing this is to hold on to the rights of these films and
Of
these
course.
characters,
Yeah.
because they would never make mediocre films of grade A animated films ever again if it wasn't for money reasons or for rights reasons.
Well,
yeah.
it's funny. Chris brings up a really good point because that's another different oversaturation, which is streaming services. Like I and my partner pay for Hulu, Amazon Prime, and Netflix. I don't pay for the YouTube Premium. Like Disney Plus is coming out, and I don't want to pay for it, but when all of my Marvel and Star Wars stuff gets sucked off of Netflix, I'm gonna have to pay for it, right? And so like that's another like I can't watch any CBS TV shows anymore because they won't let you stream them online unless you pay for their service. Same with a lot of the CW shows, which I was watching The Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow until that started to happen.
The CW verse.
Yeah, there's just so many now proprietary apps because these different companies realized, oh, well, if Netflix can do that and we have all of these shows, we shouldn't let them just go to Netflix. We should start our own service to have them. And, you know, all of them eventually come to Netflix anyway, you know, once the seasons are over. But, like, you used to be able to watch a lot of live TV week to week for some of these networks on Hulu, and now you can't anymore because they want a piece of that pie. And it's just another thing to take your money. And, like, I am personally completely oversaturated with streaming services as well because I don't feel the need to pay for all of those.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. I thought it was interesting when you mentioned Star Trek Discovery because yes, you were right. In theory, people can just watch the show, but who is going to watch the show because who has CBS All Access?
Right.
I am very frustrated that Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone reboot is exclusively on CBS All Access.
Same.
I am frustrated that the Patrick Stewart Picard series is going to be on CBS All Access.
Yeah.
And yep.
I'm
Yes,
so mad about
that's
the Twilight Zone
real
thing.
thing happening.
I'm just so mad about the Twilight Zone thing. It just took me a second to be pissed off about it. God,
Yeah, I went to New York Comic Con and I went to the DC Universe panel, and they gave everyone there a year, like a year of the subscription service. So I'm like, oh, thank God.
Doom Patrol.
Yeah. I mean, that's another thing. Like, I would actually be interested in watching the DC streaming service if the quality of their animated movies still held up, but those have been tapering. Like, and again, it's just like there's nothing guaranteeing that Marvel won't become its own streaming service at some point, or Star Wars won't have their own streaming service. I mean, think about all the Star Wars media that's available now between the movies, the animated shows, their plans on like the Mandalorian live action show that's now coming out. Like, there's no reason why
There's nothing
any of
stopping
these
them.
Yeah, and that terrifies
Hands up,
me.
won't stop.
Yeah. You know, it's same with gaming. Like, I pay for PlayStation Plus and Nintendo Online, but if I had an Xbox One, which I don't, but if I did and I played it regularly, I'd be paying for that too. You know, and you get free games with those services and stuff, but it's a lot to pay for monthly or yearly that you may or may not get the value of.
I need to watch. I have Twitch users that I want to watch, and I subscribe to.
Yeah.
It's just it's so much shit. And to kind of like bring it back to superheroes and film and just in general. Have you guys seen? I have not seen Split, but I want to see Glass, and I have not seen In Full Unbreakable. and this feels like a mini little cinematic universe thing.
But you don't have to watch Glass then. Like, if you, like, I feel like, you know, we're going off topic, obviously, but, like, I feel like the only reason I'm watching Glass is because I have a reverence for Unbreakable, and I happen to have seen Split, which I do not have reference for, but...
Right.
But, like, do you feel like you have to watch Glass and therefore have to watch Unbreakable and Split?
Part of me feels like it. I don't know.
I mean, if you're really interested based on the trailer, which, like, the trailer looked cool to me, you know, like, I had no interest in Split when I first saw the trailers for it, because I'm not a big horror movie guy either, but, like, and I'd seen Unbreakable, and once I realized, oh, it's a shared universe, and then it came up that they're making this third movie, and I saw the trailer for it, I was like, oh, that does look interesting, but do I have to see the other thing? Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think that's why I've tried to avoid a lot of trailers lately. Like, you can't at the theater, but, like, you know, I'm less frequently hunting down trailers online as they come out because I don't know what to do with the hype information.
Yeah.
You know, a great example of this actually is the new Men in Black movie, which looks fantastic. MIB International.
Totally.
So much bi energy.
So much by energy. I agree. And it looks like a really fun movie, which, you know, I like good, fun sci-fi comedies, which there aren't enough of anymore. But that said, does everyone else have to have seen those other movies? I've seen all the Men in Black movies, so I'm excluded from that. But you have to wonder, how are they going to structure this new movie, considering it's coming out so long after the third one? Do they feel a need to connect it to that, or is it going to stand alone?
Yeah, Men in Black's an interesting case because like that is something where I have seen the movies, but again, using the word reverence, I have none for that series. So it's not the same thing as Star Wars or Marvel, where there is a deep lore, where there will be subtle references, and you know maybe there was like that one picture of Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith in the trailer for International, but it's not like. You know, this is the same thing with Ghostbusters. You know, everyone pretends that Ghostbusters was like this sacred thing that could not be touched, but they were just
hardcore Ghostbuster fans.
Just two movies with SNL dudes, letting Dan Aykroyd have his ghost fun because he was obsessed with the ghosts, and you know, I mean, I don't think anyone is necessarily saying that you have to be a true MIB fan to watch the new one.
Sure.
And I feel like the only people who are claiming that they do are just mad that Tessa Thompson's one of the Men in Black. But that's a whole other thing. That I have
also, I think part of it, though, if we want to talk about remake saturation.
Oh, Hellboy.
Ooh, yeah,
the live-action Cowboy Bebop, and I have to watch all the original
No,
Cowboy
you
Bebop.
don't, Anthony!
Because then my mind will be ruined by the live-action one.
See,
Then don't watch the live-action one either.
Well, so that's an interesting thing. A lot of nerds these days feel like the new version erases the old version, which, of course, realistically, it does not. But somewhere in the pantheon, we feel like it does. But even look at Spider-Man. We've had, since the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, we've had so many Spider-Men.
Spider-Man 2's, too many Spider-Mans?
Yes.
It's like, it's just, and so, like, I'll be honest, when I first saw the trailer for Spider-Verse, I was like, okay, an animated Spider-Man movie, whatever. And I really loved Miles Morales' run in the Ultimate Spider-Man, but I just was so burned out. But then as I saw more trailers and I read more about it, I was like, oh, this might actually be good. But there could be a ton of people who might have checked out on that movie because they'd been burned so many times before. I mean, that didn't happen because it's been a huge success, but it could have happened. And like, I am always curious, what's the saturation point for watching the same character over and over again, even in the same things. I mean, think about the X-Men movies and the burnout on Wolverine because he was in the X-Men movies. He had his own movies, you know, it just, I feel like nothing's sacred anymore. And now that Hugh Jackman's not Wolverine anymore, they're going to cast somebody else because Wolverine
Nothing's sacred
forever.
anymore.
Right.
Everything's burning to the ground. It's the end of Western civilization.
What character is this?
No, I'm playing like an internet asshole who's just like, nothing is sacred. They are destroying everything. They're destroying our childhoods. I'm playing around.
To a certain extent, like, I don't think you can really get burned out on a character very easily. For example, I've played like 100 hours of The Witcher, and I'm still not part of Geralt. Or like, say, Harry Potter. There are people who've read the Harry Potter series like 20 times and they're still not bored. And it's just the same content over and over and over again.
I guess that's true. I guess it's when it's new content with the same character. How much new like we're talking about video games.
Cursed Child.
Yes.
Maybe you can make that argument.
Oh God, no! But that was just a piece of bad content.
That is true. But do you think that people also would have been burnt out if it was like average?
I think, okay, given how successful the Cursed Child is, even in its current state, I would say people do not get burnt out on at least Harry Potter very easily.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, diehard fans will stick with the series even if they're unhappy with it. But everyone has their limit. Like for me, the best example I have is the Assassin's Creed series. Once Activision started pushing them to put them out every single year, I got burned out. Oh yes, right, exactly.
Same thing with Call of Duty.
Ubisoft. But yeah, like same with Call of Duty, which I wasn't a fan of. But like once you have a game coming out every year, and if I don't like the game I'm playing currently and there's another one coming out in 6 months, I'm probably not going to buy that one. And like it's at a point now where like Odyssey is getting such great reviews and I want to play it, but I haven't touched the series since Assassin's Creed 3, so am I even going to know what's going on? And it's like how do you keep up with that stuff? It's a little bit why I think taking it back to the MCU and the Netflix series, why I haven't watched any of those seasons, is because I got 3 episodes into Defenders, thought it was okay, but just stopped watching. And now all these other shows, well, I can't watch them until I finish Defenders because they take place after Defenders. And, you know, there's this level of spoiler guilt, I guess. Like, I'm going to ruin those other experiences by watching out of order, which is ludicrous, let's be honest. Because, you know, at the end of the day, I hate spoilers, but you can still enjoy something even if it's been spoiled. Mm-hmm. But we put so much pressure and value on spoiling and watching things in a certain order that it then becomes daunting to go back, I think, which is part of why this oversaturation, to me anyway, feels so overwhelming.
I've had so many people message me personally and be like, "Hey, what do I have to know before I see this?" Like I've become like, again, the doctor prescribing things to people, and it's a fascinating role to have.
And I mean, breaking it down to its finest elements, none of this matters. Like we don't need to consume any of this content.
This is the nihilistic part of the episode.
Yeah, this is the nihilistic part of the episode. This is nihilistic nitpicking with Tony. We don't have to consume all these games. We don't have to read all these books. We don't have to watch all these movies. But, you know, what's the point of living if you don't enjoy yourself? So,
well, yeah, I think the pressure comes from the communities that we walk in. Like, for me, also, like, so let's take it completely outside of this, but also something we can all relate to, podcasts. Mm-hmm. I tried listening to My Brother and Me.
Which I love, by the way.
And The Adventure Zone. And I couldn't do it just because there's so much. So then I switched to only listening to the current episodes of My Brother and Me. Just because I knew the boys, I knew their banter, I knew that the episodes aren't connected and it's a slice of life stuff. And I still couldn't keep up. And I eventually had to unsubscribe because I just felt overwhelmed staring at my podcast list and seeing all these episodes that I was never getting to. And the funniest thing about all that is exactly what you said, Tony. It doesn't matter. Nobody was quizzing me on it. It doesn't matter. But I felt my own pressure as a podcaster and a content creator and consumer that if that list gets longer and longer and I never get to it, I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah, I have such an interesting relationship with podcasts because to me, they're theoretically the easiest ones to digest because you can just play them in the background while you're doing work, you're washing the dishes, you're on your commute, and yet I still have this massive backlog. So like I think the only full episodes I've listened to of the Bim Bam is when I am riding in a car with Tony and he's playing it in the car. I have never listened to The Adventure Zone.
I want to listen to The Adventure Zone. I don't have the time.
Yeah, exactly. I think I mainly listen to Giant Bomb and Waypoint, and
I listen to those.
Yeah, and even so, like I might occasionally pepper in like a Polygon show or Kotaku split screen every once in a while. I am subscribed to so many podcasts, but the app that I use Pocket Casts, by the way. I set it so it only notifies me when certain episodes are out, and it never auto downloads. That way, I will have the option of like putting more into my queue, but of course I never do. So I might be scrolling through like new releases, and there's like, New York Times The Daily, Friends at the Table, so and so, but I just listen to Giant Bomb and Waypoint at this point. Podcast is just such a weird thing, and I feel like most of my friends are into like the Mabim Bam, Adventure Zone, the Taz fandom. Yeah, and I feel left out of some conversations sometimes, but I never feel like, oh man, I gotta catch up if I want to be friends with these people. But that's just my personal experience.
That was a big thing for me when I was a kid. Like, I had to make sure that I played League and I was up to date on my League stuff, or Heroes of the Storm, or I understood how Dark Souls worked, or I watched some sort of anime to actually keep up to date, watch Game of Thrones, read Game of Thrones, because I needed to keep up to date with my friends, because I felt like that was a very important thing for me. But also I was, that had to do with more of a personal issue, not more of a content issue. And I think that there's like multiple situations overlapping each other now, like with all of us.
I think I've had a come to Jesus moment this year with spoilers because I can't consume everything. Like, I had Undertale spoiled for me on purpose. I watched theory videos by Matt Pat. He does a show called Game Theory because it just seemed so interesting that I wanted to know more, and I didn't know if I'd ever play it. And I'll tell you, having now played Undertale on my Switch for the first time, it's still just as good. It's still just as engaging. I didn't feel like I lost something from the experience. And I think at the end of the day, I got to a point where I know I can't consume all this stuff, so I have to start taking shortcuts, seeing spoilers, watching theory videos, watching explanations, because I'm never going to get to it all. And I think I've hit a point where I need to engage in more Cliff Notes stuff, because Cliff Notes style. Is that a reference the kids still get? Cliff Notes?
Yeah,
maybe.
Spark Notes,
I remember that.
But yeah.
Aaron, do you remember Cliff Notes?
Cliff Notes? Oh,
yeah, Cliff Notes.
Are those the book form of Spark Notes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I never used those.
So,
I had a Cliff Notes of Othello.
But I was gonna mention, as far as enjoying content, even though you've been spoiled on it, there's in fact studies by the University of California that spoilers make you enjoy the content more.
Really?
Yeah. I know I'd heard of this before, and I just Googled it to check, what I'd heard. And this article came up that's from the University of California, where a professor claims that spoilers, I guess, like enhance your viewing of something. And I know I've heard some similar ideas with music, like you enjoy music more if you know the beat, or know the musical motifs.
Is that why Anthony rewatches Cloud Atlas all the time?
I do love. Well, that was one of the reasons why I loved the movie, because I was listening to the theme in it, and I already heard the theme from the trailer, and combined with other emotional feelings and the movie itself, I enjoyed it more.
Yeah, I think that being familiar with something that you're engaging with, it's why I think there's a success rate to trailers, right? This idea that you're being made to be familiar with parts of this thing that you're then going to see in full. It's why demos exist for games, although not as much as they used to. You can download, the first stage of a certain video game so you can get a taste of it, and then it'll make you want to play it more. Yeah. And I think that, I personally think there's no harm in that, but just the same, I think it's still a dick move if someone doesn't want to be spoiled and you do it anyway. But I think we could all learn from engaging in spoilers a little bit, because it may ease the pressure of needing to see all this stuff.
I can tell you, I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the way it's edited and maybe the song from The Killers, but I've rewatched the Vice trailer like over and over again this week. It's this weirdly, oddly like.
Wait, which song from The Killers do they use?
Jeez.
The Man song.
Yeah, The Man.
It's pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I actually do not like that song. I actually hate that song. I actually hate that whole album.
The thing about The Killers is they change like their tune with each album, so
that is true. Yeah.
You just have to get used to it, and then you might like it more.
Do you guys have any album backlogs?
For me, I used to, for 4 years, I hosted with two co-hosts a weekly album review podcast where me and two co-hosts would review a new album and break it down track by track every week. And so that actually kept me on top of music a lot more than I thought it would. Mm-hmm. Now that I don't have that podcast, which is currently on hiatus indefinitely, which is a nice way of saying it's been canceled for the moment.
Okay.
I don't listen to as much new music as I used to. Like, if it's a band I really like, I'll go hunt it down, but I feel like I'm not checking the new releases as much. But in a similar way to Erin was talking about with her books earlier, and her movies and other things, I don't feel necessarily pressure about the backlog because I'm not going out of my way to learn about it either. Like, it exists, and I'm sure if I went on Spotify's new releases today, I'd probably find 10 albums I wanted to listen to. But I don't feel a pressure to go back through all of them.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of like with music for me, it's much easier to listen to something while I'm doing, like, listening to music while I'm doing something rather than listening to a podcast. Because I can't, like, many other people can listen to a podcast or listen to an audiobook while they're doing other work. I can't do that. I have to be more focused on the podcast than doing the other thing. Where with music, I can do it with anything. And usually there will be a beat that will click and I'll enjoy it. But yeah, there was something else that I kind of wanted to touch on, the idea that there is music out there that I have never heard of, by bands that I will never ever listen to, that will probably be my favorite band and will have my favorite song, and I will never hear it.
How do you find it?
And
you just have to accept.
It's more of the hypothetical. It's more of the existential question. There's a book out there that I will never read that will be amazing. There's a movie that I will never see that is amazing and I will love. There is a song that I will never hear. And it's understanding that there is all this content out there, and the inability to hear it, to see it, or to read it is just a concept that exists. It's not more to, it's not like, I'm not saying to break it down in any way or to dissect that, just to come to grips with that knowledge is kind of interesting and kind of anxiety inducing, and anxiety in the big way, not like in the mental way, like existentialism anxiety way. So just a thing to bring out there that I was just thinking of.
Yeah, that's sort of like the oversaturation, I guess, of like just the way technology has allowed us to produce content. Like there's gigabytes and gigabytes of new entertainment that's produced in every second, and you'll just never be able to get to it all, even if you were like immortal.
We're part of the problem. We're making content right now. Oh God, stop this.
Oh God, but if we're making the content, then who is consuming the content that we create? Ah!
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, no, I think it's actually a really good a concept to think about, and probably where a lot of the pressure comes from is that we have limited hours in the day, days in the year, years in our life, blah, 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 and that it is impossible to have seen, done, and heard everything. We're just at a point now where so many people make so many things that you can't possibly consume it all. Because I think also there was a point in time where there were consumers and then people who made the content. Whereas now a lot of the consumers also make content, which wasn't the case back in the day. Like, of course, actors in film and stuff in the old days probably watched movies as well, but the numbers were so different because the access point was so much higher.
The separation was more distinct, where today,
Whereas
now, four of us are consumers and creators.
Right. And like, you can spend $100 and get a starting kit to make a podcast. And like, it won't be the best quality of audio ever, but it won't be bad. You know, most of our iPhones can record decent quality audio to put out on the world. And so like,
Twitch exists.
Right. And so I feel like the access point is so low now that that's added to the oversaturation, because we all are now both creating and consuming, and both of those affect each other too.
Just wait until Vine's back. It's gonna mess everything up now.
Oh God.
Well, there's TikTok for the younger generation.
I've never heard of that before. What are you talking about?
That's what the Zoomers are reading and looking at.
One more big picture topic I want us to tackle before we wrap up. So I believe Steven Spielberg was quoted one time saying that superhero movies will go in the way of the Western. And for the purpose of the conversation, we'll include superhero television shows in there. But do y'all agree? I mean, how do you approach that take? How do you... Because, is there a certain truth to it, or is that just, this is just a jaded filmmaker who is tired of seeing superhero movies?
Well, yeah, I think something we have to look at is that Steven Spielberg is not making superhero movies. So for him to say something like that, I assume there's a bit of hope to it. Although you could argue that, Star Wars and the Indiana Jones movies and E.T. are all their own super heroic films. But I think that the saturation of superhero movies will definitely go the way of the Western, but I don't think they're ever going to disappear because, when you think about it, we've been making superhero movies for a long time, from the Christopher Reeves Superman movies to the George Reeves TV show. Like, it's not like they just suddenly existed now. There's just more of them now. And I think eventually we're going to hit a point where there's too many and it'll get scaled back, but I don't think they're ever going to just disappear. That said, if that's what Steven Spielberg means, if he thinks that we'll just have less, like we have less Westerns now, because we still have Westerns now, they're just not as constant. I would say that kind of happens with any popular trend, so it's not that unthinkable. But also, we've never had cinematic universes to the scale like we do now. This is a first.
I think what you really need to make the bubble burst is having really bad ones. Like, you need your Cutthroat Islands, which basically killed the whole pirate subgenre until Pirates of the Caribbean came along for, I think literally a decade or two.
Do we have any other pirate content since Pirates of the Caribbean other than the Black Flag TV show?
That's
if
a
you
great
count
question.
video games,
We had the Black Flag, the Assassin's Creed game, then you had Sea of Thieves, and then you have that other one coming out. Skull and something.
Yeah, and at all those times, also, there were Pirates of the Caribbean games coming out. The Lego game, they had their own regular game. They were in Kingdom Hearts.
They're in Kingdom Hearts again.
Yeah.
Fake Johnny Depp. Virtual Johnny Depp.
He at least can't be as evil as the real Johnny Depp, so
They are rebooting Pirates of the Caribbean without Johnny Depp, is the latest news stories I read.
Yeah, I very recently, just because I guess I had nothing better to do, watched Dead Man Tell No Tales, which was the last one they made.
Was it good?
No.
I watched that movie in theaters, and I don't remember anything from it except for maybe one scene with the Elizabeth and other guy. They're ripoffs. That's all I remember.
Well, so at the end of the movie, there's a payoff where Elizabeth and Will Turner get reunited, which was nice as someone who liked the original movies. But I think Jack Sparrow as a character didn't age very well. Like, a lot of his antics I don't find funny anymore, whereas when I was younger, I probably found them very funny. But I think also part of the problem with that movie series is that the first movie wasn't a hit because of Jack Sparrow. Jack Sparrow was just talked about the most. The lead was still Orlando Bloom. But after that, they were like, "Oh, everyone loves Jack Sparrow. Let's make him the main character." And they just built on that until they couldn't anymore.
Pirates of the Caribbean?
That was a mistake.
But that said, I think that I'm inclined to agree that with Spielberg's thought that eventually we'll hit a point where this will all scale back. I just don't know what that point will be, because they're releasing, like you said, Chris, they're releasing 3 movies a year now, which you would think is insane, and yet people are still eating it up.
Oh, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to try out.
Aaron, then Anthony, your thoughts on Spielberg and his...
well, for someone who just made, Ready Player One, which, in my opinion, is, a cliche, sort of, not very interesting... examination
that movie is
of
a
74 Especially, I loved Nancy Drew when I was a little kid, And they shat on Nancy Drew in that movie, and I was just like, okay.
Really?
So, I don't really think his opinion is necessarily, I mean, he's a great movie director and all, but I don't think, he knows everything in the world. Like, I think that's a lot of people. So.
Anthony, do you concur?
I agree with what Aaron said, but I also think it's kind of like, I don't know, I think we're not watching that many Westerns now. Like, you can argue that Clint Eastwood's new movies are like modern Westerns, and I put those in quotes, like The Mule could be considered a Western. But I think we'll still be watching superhero movies in the same way that, because I feel like a Western has a full-on aesthetic to it, whereas superhero movies is a twist on the hero's journey, and that's why it's called a hero's journey. It's just the character is not it has extraordinary powers. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I feel like on a ground level discussion of like what he said, I don't think so. But on like a meta level, I don't know. It's just weird. It's a weird statement. It's like what Inaratu said about Transformers and comparing Transformers to superhero movies, which is weird.
I mean, I think he literally called superhero movies like a cancer or something like that. Something absurd like that.
Well, because again, a lot of these filmmakers outside of the genre, finger quotes, is that they think it's just that. They think it's a genre, the superhero movie, when the reality is 90% of the superhero movies are other genres. They just happen to have superheroes. Yes!
That is the thesis of the class.
There you go.
You have succeeded. You get an honorary A from the Marvel Film Studies Stuco of Carnegie Mellon University.
Yeah.
When do I get to meet Kevin Feige? I've got some questions.
As soon as we were able to meet him. So
yes,
fair enough. Wait. I want to say, I think in the Christmas episode, I don't know if it was before or during recording, but I think a couple of us are like gunning for like actual Marvel related jobs, but good luck to them. Yeah. Last thing I want to ask y'all is I opened the show by talking about New Year's resolutions, so I'm wondering if we can go the order of Anthony, Aaron, Matt. How are you planning to tackle the MCU content of 2019?
Oh, just MCU content?
Yeah, let's narrow our focus. If you want to talk about other stuff, feel free to do so.
I hope all the games in 2019 suck, so I can play all the games in 2018 that I did have a chance to play. But with the MCU, I feel like it's just going to be, like, for me, movies are very easy to view. It takes, like, a couple hours out of my day on, like, a Friday or a Saturday. So, and we already have a planned event to go see Endgame. So I'm not really worried about Endgame or Captain Marvel, and I'll probably find time to go see Far From Home. I don't know what other TV shows are coming out. I may or may not see Runaways, probably in the may not area. Just because I have to finish season 1 and I'm behind on other content as I've already discussed. I don't know if there's what else is coming out.
Cloak and Dagger season 2, Shield season 6.
I'll probably I have to catch up on 4 and 5.
Punisher and Jessica Jones will have what I would guess their last seasons.
Yeah.
And you have not seen Punisher season 1 or Jessica Jones season 2.
No, but also I don't have an interest in seeing Punisher. I have no interest in, but like, I know I haven't seen the Punisher season 1, but I also have no interest in seeing that because of what goes on in it. I don't like to see that. I think, like, I don't know, the military's dumb. Yeah.
Well, you don't believe in the good guy with a gun?
I do not believe in the good guy with a gun. No, I do not. Yeah.
Aaron.
All right. As far as MCU content goes, I'm in the same boat with movies. I'm sure I'm gonna go see them all. I could definitely see it as harder to go see if you're like older and you have a job and or you're busy with something.
Kids.
Yeah, kids. But it won't be a problem for me because I have none of those. As far as the TV content goes, I'll just see whatever like catches my fancy. I'm probably not gonna watch Daredevil season 3. I know it was highly recommended, but it's just not on my list of things to do at the moment. I will probably watch Runaway season 2 though. I like the first season well enough, and it's good to sort of put on, I guess, and watch in the background to a certain extent. And then all the other content. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Yeah, just whatever catches my eye.
How are you going to fit this all in with your schoolwork, and not to mention your duties teaching in Marvel Stuco?
I mean, seeing a Marvel movie, like, that's high priority, and then comes school, and then, like, somewhere, like, 7th or 8th comes Marvel shows.
movie, school, everything else.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
That is dedication.
How are you, as
dedication.
someone who obviously has graduated a long time ago and no longer teaches this class, how are you guys covering the television shows in this class?
Oh, okay, so, the first semester, I was a Stuco teacher. We covered Hulu shows / everything else in one day, and we covered Netflix shows in one day. This most recent semester, we covered all TV shows in one day, and we just picked out a couple highlights. So, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Daredevil. I think we chose a bad show. I want to say we chose Iron Fist, but we could have picked between Iron Fist or Inhumans. And so we were just like, okay, this side of the universe exists. And then in my upcoming renovation of the Stuco, I'm not really sure how we're going to handle TV shows. I definitely think, well, at the very least, mention Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I think that has the strongest connection to the MCU as a whole. And I hope we get the time when they come out to mention the Disney Plus TV shows, especially if they have, like, a cohesive connection to the universe as a whole.
Do you feel like you'll be able to come at those lectures with, like, a sense of expertise on them, or is it just kind of like, yeah, I read this on Wikipedia because I couldn't actually watch this?
I would say, as far as everyone's on the same page for the Marvel movies, but the TV shows, it comes in, like, sections. Like, for example, I've seen most of Agent Carter, so I'm the Agent Carter expert, versus, like, Izzy, who's maybe has seen Daredevil season 3, which I haven't seen, or Runaways, which I also haven't seen. So it's just sort of, it's split up.
Yeah.
And if you know about a show, you'll talk about it.
I can tell you from that first semester, which Anthony was a student in, Thomas Rasmussen, who is also a student, but not in this episode right now, that I did a TV episode, a TV class, a single class, and that's the one that everyone skips the most because they had not watched the TV shows, so they didn't feel they needed to go. They just used their 3 unexcused absences there. Matt Storm, aka Storm again. How are you going to tackle this MCU content, given all of your commitments, your roles, your podcasts, your duties, and whatnot?
Well, so I think I'm on the same page with everybody as far as the movies go. I'm really excited about Captain Marvel. I've been waiting for that movie for a while, and Endgame is Endgame. Like, that's the event. So, like, I'll see that. And I liked Spider-Man Homecoming, so I'm sure I'll see Far From Home as well. As far as TV shows go, the only one that is a must and will not miss is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I still watch that with my spouse. We've seen every episode. It's had its ups and downs, but as a whole, we still really love it. The Netflix stuff, like, now that a lot of it's gotten canceled, the pressure is gone. Because I had some semblance of pressure of, like, oh, I have to see this season before the next season. But now that a ton of them have been canceled, and I know that the rest are obviously going to be on the chopping block after their next seasons, a lot of that pressure has waned. I would still really love to at least watch the newest season of Jessica Jones, because the first season of Jessica Jones is probably my favorite Netflix series, period. I just loved it so much, even though it was so hard to watch at times. But, like Punisher, I'm not that interested in because season 2 of Daredevil was the Punisher season 1. Like, that was all about the Punisher pretty much. So I lost a lot of interest in that character, even though I'm sure the show is good. I'm feeling the burnout of the Netflix series. Everyone keeps telling me Runaways is worth watching, and like I said, every time I look up and catch some of it, it does seem interesting, and I loved the comics. Like, I love that series, so I'll eventually get to it, I think. I think of all of the Marvel content everywhere, forever, that is coming out and has come out, The one I'm most curious about is probably Cloak and Dagger. I've heard a lot of really good things about it. I think if I'm going to single out any of the series that I've not seen in 2019, by 2019, that Cloak and Dagger is probably the one that I'm going to watch. And as far as Marvel and video games, I played Spider-Man for PS4 this year. I loved it. I thought it was phenomenal. So if there's a sequel in the works, I'll play that.
Except for the Spider Cop.
I'm sorry. I love Spider Cop. I have a soft spot for Spider Cop. When Peter Parker / Spider-Man is incredibly awkward, he is at his most authentic, because that is Peter Parker Spider-Man.
But cops.
Well, that's another episode, but yeah.
That's another episode.
But yeah, I think that I'm gonna try and ease up on the pressure to see all this stuff, because I have felt it quite a bit. That said, like my big watch last year in 2018 was the Castlevania season 2, because I loved season 1, and like that I watched as soon as it came out. It was the only show that I did that with. Every other show, as new stuff came out, I got to it whenever I got to it. So I think at this point, are the episodes shorter? Are the plots concise? Will it make me laugh? Will I be entertained? Like, I think a lot of that is more important now, finally, than is it about a character I like? Like, if they announced tomorrow that they were going to do a Wolverine TV series, and Wolverine is one of my favorite Marvel characters, I don't know that I'd watch it, because I don't think the character is enough anymore. I think in 2019, I need the content to be concise and interesting and engaging. And if it's not, I think I'm going to let the pressure fall off, because otherwise there's just too much of it.
Is the Castlevania show good?
It's incredible. If you have a basic working knowledge of the story of Castlevania, and you like vampires and gothic stuff, like, it is by far one of the best animated series I've watched in a long time.
Wow. That's high praise.
Yeah. Like, you mentioned Cowboy Bebop before. Like, I feel like it's of a quality of anime like those kinds of one series anime shows, even though it's got multiple seasons.
Like Neon Genesis?
Yeah, I mean, like, the drama is not as heavy, but I think that the storytelling is really good. There are 27 to 25 minute episodes. They're really digestible. And I, being a big fan of Castlevania and the stories, really got into it. But I think if you're just interested in some gothic horror with some funny moments, it's a really good series to dive into.
Okay, cool.
So obviously I am required to watch all the MCU stuff. If you want to like understand my commitment to the MCU, I watched Inhumans on IMAX theaters. I was one of 5 people in that movie theater. It was not good. But I don't know. My superpower is catching up with the MCU somehow. So I think the only one I fell behind on was Agent Carter Season 2, which I eventually binge watched when it all came out on Hulu. But man, I have kind of been on it. I think my goal for 2019 then is to make my written backlogs actually make sense, because let me I already described the video game one to you. It's a checklist divided by platform. My movie backlog is by if I've seen it or not, and it's I have different lists for each year. So I have a 2018 list, I have a 2019 list, and my TV show backlog is based by category. So it's like caught up on, currently binge watching, finished, upcoming, catch up with, complete, to watch, recommendation. It's like this. It makes no sense. Like, these are all different formats, and I just have to make this make sense somehow.
Breaking news during the podcast. I just saw this on Twitter, but it did come out 8 hours ago. But I just saw this on Twitter. The new movie by Jordan Peele,
Us,
which had a great trailer. It was amazing. I'm very excited for it. It's apparently in the same universe as Get Out, and Jordan Peele is making a universe of all of them.
Oh my gosh! It's a new cinematic universe.
I'm assuming it's going to be more like a la Quentin Tarantino's universe, where
right.
like they're kind of like in the same existence, but they're not interacting with each other as much. Does that make sense? Yeah.
They should they should Jay and Silent Bob that up, and like just have reoccurring characters who appear in each unrelated movie. Anyway, any last-minute comments before we wrap up? Because we are actually going under an hour and a half, whereas we had the 2-hour problem the previous episodes.
Yeah, well, I think, wasn't our goal
an hour and a half?
Yeah, thank goodness.
So we have 5 minutes to get this shit done.
Yeah. No last-minute comments?
I'm happy with what we talked about.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I think so too.
I have Red Dead to play. Also, is HDR a good thing to keep on or off?
The colors should look nice.
I don't Yeah.
You keep it on?
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah,
Do it.
fun.
Alrighty then. So let's do some social media plugs. Anthony, where can people find you on social media?
You could find me at the Pizza Taco on Twitter.
Aaron, we cannot find you on social media, correct?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna make a Twitter at some point.
right.
Yeah.
I'll update you next time on the
Don't do
podcast.
it. Don't give in. Stay off social media.
No,
I'm
have
off
a Facebook
Facebook.
already.
I have been off
you know?
Facebook for
I made
2 months.
I made an Instagram my senior year of high school. I got a Facebook my freshman year of college, so I'm a sophomore now. Why not get a Twitter?
It's a sad requirement that you need Twitter to like engage with the followings and the fandoms and whatnot. But
If you are if you have a lot of friends, it's Facebook. But if you're a content creator, you need a Twitter.
Aaron, I will support you whatever decision you make.
All right,
Yeah,
thank you.
you can find me at Compenderizer. Matt, where can people find you on social media, and what projects would you like to plug? Take all the time you want.
Thanks. It could be a while.
Yes.
A lot of my friends like to make jokes that the only way they can hang out with me now is to be on one of my many podcasts. So that gives you an idea. So you can find me on Instagram and Twitter, DJ_Stormageddon. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/StormageddonNYC. I have a Tumblr, but I think it's just DJ Stormageddon with no underscore, but that one is mostly just a repost of all of my other stuff. I have 4 different podcasts that can all be found on every podcast platform imaginable. One of them is called Crash Chords Autographs. This is the series I mentioned earlier. Episode 103 is actually the FlameCon episode that Chris is featured on, asking that question he mentioned earlier. Crash Chords Autographs is my personal pet project. It's a bi-weekly interview series. I interview musicians, magicians, burlesque performers, comedians, photographers, pretty much anyone who wants to talk, who's involved in the arts. And also when I get to go to events or be on panels like I was at FlameCon, I release that there as well. The next show is called Screen Snark. I host it with Rachel Quirky Shank. It is a bi-weekly movie podcast where we bring a guest on and talk about the most recent movie we've all seen and then talk about the guest. Our most recent episode is with Chuck Collins, who is a creator of the comic called The Bounce, or is creator of a comic called Bounce, which is about a bouncer in New York and is slice of life, kind of fun webcomic that's worth checking out. The next 2 shows are both video game related shows. One is Fun and Games Podcast with Matt and Jeff. That is with my co-host Jeff Moonen, and it is a games as art podcast. We talk about the different genres of gaming, the different genres of, production houses, what, tropes in gaming, certain types of games that come out, cliches in the gaming industry. We did a really great episode actually on social awareness of language in gaming and how certain words are used without thought as slurs in the gaming community. It's one of the episodes I'm most proud of. And then finally, my last show is called Reignite. It is a podcast I host with MJ Bradley, Lestrange, and the 2 of us talk about we're going to do the entire Mass Effect series. We're just wrapping up on the first Mass Effect game. We're playing chunks of the game and then discussing our choices that we make, because we're making choices as our shepherds based on our personal feelings and choices, and then discussing how that makes us feel, how that might affect our actual life and our actual social interactions. And that one gets really in-depth. That one's been a lot of fun to do. I also have a Discord that you can find on the Fun and Games Facebook page. It's a public Discord that features a bunch of my podcasts. You can come hang out, chat about the episodes. So yeah, that's all the stuff I work on. And then also, if you happen to be in the New York area, I'm a producer for the burlesque troupe Magical Girl Burlesque. We do a lot of nerdy and hyper-focused themed burlesque shows. We just did a show in December all to the music of the Decemberists with a live band. So it was a burlesque show where all.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I am not.
Are you fucking kidding me? Why have I? I am in Pittsburgh. Ah, god damn it, this sucks.
And so yeah, if you're into nerdy burlesque or just burlesque in general,
or the
you can check
Decemberists.
us out. But yeah, thank you for having me on the show. This has been a blast. Again, the easiest way to contact me if you have questions, want to know about more of the stuff I do, is to find me on Twitter, DJ_Stormageddon.
Yeah, absolutely. We were so happy to have you on. It sounds like Tony is also happy to listen about all your projects.
Hell yeah.
And if you need any of us on any of your many projects, you know how to hit us up now.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, so yeah, if you want Anthony to just rant on for 2 straight hours and interrupt everyone, then please.
I could do that. I can watch a bunch of videos on lunonarrative dissonance and gaming, and then we could talk about it.
All right. So So last final plugs. You can subscribe to AP Marvel. We have been on iTunes and recently Anchor, but we are now on Google Podcasts and Spotify. If you want to smash that subscribe button, we also have a YouTube channel. We have a Patreon out now, so we have some Patreon exclusive rewards, mainly kind of premium quote unquote podcasts. So we have an older podcast where we talk about Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom from back in the summer. We have the pilot episode of Tony's Film Corner, where our very own Anthony Payone talks about Once Upon a Deadpool. We'll see how that goes. So we'll keep that going. We have a Medium page. We have a couple of older essays. We're going to try to get some guest contributors, and of course the Patreon is for the purpose of paying those guest contributors. But meanwhile, you can just look at our back catalog of podcast episodes there. You can see some of the essays that Izzy and I have written there. We have our own Discord server, just like Matt with Stormageddon. We talk about Marvel stuff. It's public again, and feel free to join us and just talk about if Thanos is either a psychopath or sociopath, which seems to be the current discourse right now. And other than that, thank you to Charles Villanueva for his amazing graphic design. Thanks to Steve Molitor for his awesome Jazz Avengers track, and we're hoping to get some more music tracks for some of the off-topic podcasts and maybe ad breaks, question mark, if we're going to do that. But yeah, I am actually writing all these down, like all of the lists of the list of stuff I have to plug now, because I keep forgetting one thing every single episode. So there you go. That's the whole thing. That was episode 31 of AP Marvel. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Matt Storm, so much for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you. Blast.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.